Well, I realized that this month marks an anniversary for me. I've been playing the violin now 50 years. I can hardly believe it. I know I look young, and people are going to say, "What, are you playing in a womb?" No, I'm 58 years old currently, and I started when I was 8. It's 50 years ago. Can hardly believe it. And I've had a lot of ups and some downs and some parts I didn't care about. I've learned a few things along the way, and I thought maybe some other people can benefit from my maybe pearls of wisdom, if you have them, or throw them out, whatever. But I thought I'd do a quick video about a few things that I thought, looking back in hindsight, are way more important than I thought when I started out, and a few things that probably aren't so important. So, what are they? All right, so I'm going to give you the top 3 things that I think, at 50 years looking back, were really critical, and if I could impart this wisdom on anyone else, this would be it. Number 1, believe it or not, it doesn't matter whether you can play Paganini, you did the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto when you were 3, you can blaze scales in thirds and sixths and fingered octaves. It doesn't matter any of that stuff, really. What it matters comes down to is tone. Number 1, can you stroke the bow across the fiddle, violin, and make a good sound, and with that tone, reach into somebody's heart and make them cry if you're there, make them sing, make them dance. Can you do that? Well, dancing maybe is part of the second one, but getting a good tone is critical. If you can play the fanciest, greatest stuff and you sound scratchy and not so good and don't have much soul in it, what good is it? Sound good with one note first, then go forward. You can learn the fancy scales and jamming stuff anytime. That's just brain knowledge for the most part. Learn how to make that thing cry or sing. Learn the techniques of the bowing and get a good bow stroke and have a subtlety of your stroke. If I was starting all over and if I knew better, I would just sit and go for hours and stroke my fingers. That's what I'd do if I was going to start all over. That's number 1. Make a good sound. Number 2, I mentioned it already. Number 2, if it makes people dance, it comes down to rhythm. I think rhythm is the most important thing in music, period. Actually, even maybe more than tone. But, you can take these in any order you want. But rhythm is where the magic of the music is, and if you really focus on rhythm, even playing that one note I mentioned in working on tone, with a good rhythm, you can make people dance and have a good time. Just D, 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 D. You can have a good time, they can have a good time. It's all about rhythm. I think classically trained players forget how deep rhythm is and how essential it is to the intangible parts of music. We don't know what it is. We don't know what a beat is. We can't explain it. I've been playing 50 years and still don't know. I know a lot of things about music, and I don't know what the most basic thing a beat even is. The rhythm, kind of dances around this pulse. Where is this pulse? We don't know what the pulse is. We don't know how it works, and if I feel the pulse inside me, how do you get to tap your foot along? I don't get it. I'm saving that one for Answerland. But being aware of the pulse and rhythm is probably, if not number 1, number 2, and what I would tell people to do. Play with not only a metronome, play with a drum beat, play with hip-hop songs. Just goof around and play even your classical pieces with drum beats. And it'll deepen your sense of rhythm because that's where the magic really is. The other thing I would say, going back, again, is not how much scales and modes, and all this crazy stuff. You can learn that too. It's just knowledge. But the essentials of the mechanics of music. I'm flabbergasted how many classically trained players don't really know what the heck they're doing. They don't know what's going on in the harmony. They might have learned some Bach chorale stuff in high school or something, or maybe a college course, maybe. But to know the stuff you'd actually use on a bandstand would actually influence your ears, help you to listen better. Listening, huh? Pretty important stuff. That's number 3, learning to listen through the knowledge of the mechanics of music. I don't even like to call it theory. Theory is something that's unproven. Mechanics is how stuff works. So learn the do, re, mi, learn the spacing of the notes, learn the in-between notes, your intervals, learn the basics of chords, learn the basics of the note number system, learn the basics of the chord number system. If you don't know that stuff, you can study it from me, you can study it from any teacher in the world, but if you know the basics, that's what actually makes me listen better. Oh, there's the 2 chord, there's the 5 chord. Oh, okay. It improved my ear to know that stuff. And even if I'm playing classical, I can hear the changes underneath and I can respond to them in a way greater depth. So these seem like super basic stuff, really. It's not rocket science to know the basics of music, the mechanics of it. It's not rocket science to actually play rhythm, but it's a little tough to actually feel, know it and be aware of it and think it. And making a good tone takes a lot of patience and relaxation. These things are more important than how fast your fingers fly or how much you know by far. If I had to give an extra, like a bonus one, I would say this. It's the why you play music. Honestly, I lost sight of that for a while. I was a very skilled, talented player in my early youth and got into bands and played in orchestras, played for soloists in front of orchestras, all these things. And I think for a while I lost the sight of why I play music. Why do you play music? You have to answer that for yourself, just like I have to answer for myself. Is it for your own pleasure? Play in your bedroom. If it doesn't give you pleasure anymore, maybe you went to college and just burn out on the fiddle. It happens. Stop playing. You don't have to do it just because you're good at it. I kind of gave it up. I never gave it up, but I did other things for a while. I just burnt out. I was teaching 1 million students. I was gigging like crazy. I was putting out recordings, writing books, and I just freaked out at one point. It's like, this is too much. So I drove school bus for a while. And people go, what? Somebody telling you I had to drive school? It was a great musician's job. I could do that in the morning and go home and work on some music and go back later. So I did other things. It made me a deeper person, I think, to do these other things, even if they weren't music or weren't the superstar thing to do. So you have to answer that for yourself. Why are you playing music? Just because you're good at it, your parents told you should? And you do it because there's a deep longing for it in your heart? That's not a bad idea, in my opinion. Are you doing it because you're there to serve people by what you play? Do others get enjoyment out of what you play? And are you okay with that? Maybe you don't care. Maybe you just want to play for your own enjoyment at home. That's okay too. You have to find your why. Why do you play music? Why do you play the violin? Why do you play the way you do? So if I had to give anybody advice starting over, that's it. Figure out why you want to do it, if you can. You don't have to know all the time, everything either. Maybe you'll disprove me and say, I don't care, I just want to do it. That's fine. Make a good sound. Develop a good sense of rhythm and learn the basics. And everything will fall into place from there. Don't become a great classical player or blaze the scales and not have those things. I know professional musicians who don't have a good sense of rhythm and have a terrible tone. And really, some of them that don't know what they're doing. And therefore, the depth of their musical experience is never that great, in my opinion. So if I had to impart a little bit of wisdom to anybody after 50 freaking years, that would be it. If this benefits you at all, put some comments on there and share if you think I'm totally full of hogwash. That's fine too. That's my take on 50 years of what is important. Amen.